In 2014, in a small village in Imo State, a boy was born. His arrival was meant to be a blessing. His mother had suffered much before. She had lost children in childbirth, her body weakened by pain and sorrow. So when the labor began that evening, the whole compound was restless. Men sat outside smoking and praying. Women crowded in the room, and the midwife worked tirelessly to bring the child into the world. At last, after hours of sweat and shouting, the sound of a baby's cry filled the room. Everyone cheered, relief washing over the family. It was a boy. His father ran outside, his chest wide with pride. "My son has come," he announced. Chickens were slaughtered, soup was cooked, palm wine poured. Neighbors came to share in the joy. That night, laughter filled the air, and for the first time in many years, the family felt whole again. But joy is sometimes a mask of a deeper sorrow. Not long after midnight, the baby's weak cry rose again, but this time it changed. It deepened. It grew rough and heavy, like a voice worn by age. At first, those who heard it thought they were half asleep. Then the mother screamed. The baby lay in her arms, his tiny mouth moving, forming words that no newborn should know. The voice that came from him was not soft. It was the voice of a grown man, hoarse and angry, speaking in sharp Igbo. His words were quick and bitter. His mother clutched her wrapper tight to her chest, trembling, while his aunt dropped to her knees, calling the name of Jesus again and again. His father pressed against the wall, his face pale. For a few moments, the baby's voice carried through the room like the voice of someone who had lived before and returned to settle scores. Then it stopped. The baby's lips curved into a smile, and what came out was a laugh. Not the bubbling giggle of a child. A dry, broken laugh that seemed to belong to someone far older, someone who had seen too much. When the laughter faded, the child began to cry again like any normal infant. But no one slept that night. At dawn, silence hung over the compound. The celebration was over. Women who had danced with joy the day before now avoided the mother's room. The father sat outside, staring at the ground. Nobody wanted to speak of what they had heard, but the fear was clear in their eyes. By afternoon, an old woman arrived from another village. She was bent with age, her eyes sharp and dark, her wrapper tied tightly around her chest. People whispered that she was the daughter of a powerful dibia, that she had knowledge of things beyond the living. She was taken into the room with the baby. Those outside heard her chanting. They heard the shaking of rattles. They heard the baby scream, louder and louder, as if in pain. Then, suddenly, silence. When the old woman came out, she spoke only to the father. Her voice was low, but one sentence carried through the still air. "This child carries two souls. One is not meant to stay." From then on, joy never returned to the house. The mother held her child but with fear in her eyes. The father rarely stepped inside the room. The aunt prayed every night until her voice was hoarse. Everyone waited for something to happen. 2 weeks later, word spread through the family. The baby had died in his sleep, but no wailing filled the air. No burial mound appeared at the edge of the compound. No one saw a body wrapped in cloth. The baby was simply gone, as though he had never been born. The family told no stories of him, spoke no name. To outsiders, he did not exist, yet not everyone believed he was gone. One night, before the news of his death was given, a relative had gone outside to find signal on his phone. The moon was weak, the compound quiet. By the goat shed, he saw a figure standing in the shadows. Small, barefoot. At first, he thought it was one of the village children. But when the figure stepped forward, his blood turned cold. It was the same baby. Not an infant now, but older, perhaps 2 or 3 years old. The same piercing eyes, watching, unblinking. The child opened his mouth, and instead of words came that same dry, broken laugh. The relative ran inside and locked the door, but the sound of the laugh followed him into his dreams. Years passed. The story faded. The family continued with their lives, never mentioning the child again. But the past is never buried. Nearly 10 years later, a burial brought the same relative back to the village. He had grown, built a new life in the city, and told himself the memory of that baby was only fear, only imagination. But the moment he stepped into the compound, the heaviness returned. The goat shed still stood at the corner of the yard, its shadow long in the evening light. That night, as he stepped outside, he saw a figure again, taller now, thin, standing where the shadows were deepest. When the figure stepped forward, his heart froze. It was the same face, the same sharp eyes. The child looked 10 or 11 now, barefoot, his lips curved into that cool, knowing smile. And from his mouth came the same laugh, the laugh of something that should not walk among the living. The relative turned and fled. He told no one, but the next day, during the burial, he searched the faces of the children in the village. None matched. None carried that stare. He realized then that what he had seen was not a child among the living. On his last night, footsteps circled the house. Barefoot, slow, he lay still, trembling under his wrapper as the sound moved past the windows. Then came the laugh, soft at first, then louder, surrounding the walls. When he left the village, he glanced back, and there at the far end of the road, the figure stood again, barefoot, smiling, watching. No one speaks of the baby anymore. No one admits he ever lived. But those who have heard the laugh at night know the truth. The child was born with 2 souls. One was not meant to stay. And yet, the wrong one did. And it is still waiting.